I'm here with Roy Moore. He is the director of Fair Play for All Foundation, which is a charity set up in the Philippines. I was friends with Roy at university. We were good friends, and Roy's gone out to the Philippines since then, and he's been running his charity since. Hello, Roy.
Hey Dave, pleasure to be with you. Yeah, it's executive director is the name for the person in charge of the charity, and yeah, we set up Fair Play back in 2011 now. So we're just about to celebrate next weekend. We celebrate the 14th year of Payatas FC, one of our projects, our kind of flagship project, and this year 14 years of Fair Play. So wow, it's been quite some time.
Yeah, it has. So what? I mean, when we were friends at uni, I think you'd been out to the Philippines before, hadn't you? But your own charity hadn't been set up. Can you chat a bit about, I guess, how the charity got set up and what your intention was behind it all? Obviously, football's an essential part of the whole thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I always wanted to get involved in charity work. I always wanted to get involved in the development world. And talking back in high school, I knew that was a direction that I wanted to go in. And I volunteered with a few different organizations, went out to the Ukraine, to Kenya, to the Philippines. Really enjoyed it in the Philippines, volunteering with an organization here. We would be sometimes based in Payatas, which is at the time was the largest dump site in the Philippines. And so hundreds of thousands of people live around the community, scavenging in the area. And obviously there's a deep sense of it's so unfair that they are born in that situation. I'm born in the situation I am. You're born in the situation you are. And that fact alone determines so much about our life. That fact alone determines so much about the opportunities we have. So originally, football wasn't going to be part of. I never thought, it's the Philippines. For one, it's a basketball country, which makes very little sense for a country where the average height for men is 5'4", but that's a whole other story. The Philippines have some amazing sportsmen, but football is a very, very small sport here. But the national team did quite well in the tournament in the Southeast Asian Cup. And we saw it on TV, and some of the kids in the area, hey, you're English, right, Roy? Yeah, you like football and so on. It's like, hey, let's start a football team, see how it goes.
Yeah.
And so it really started so organically, just like that, going to the local, kind of like the local council, the local barangay, asking if we can use their basketball court for the training sessions. Just every week I'd go and coach sessions. 80 kids on a basketball court, 2 footballs, using white plastic chairs for goals. It was insane. It was so silly looking back on how obviously amateur it was.
The kids
and how
loved it
crazy
though.
was.
Like the kids were always really into it. I think. Just to say, I went out in about 2011 and visited and experienced the whole place. And I guess a bit similar to you, what you were saying just then about like why are these kids born in these circumstances and other kids, let's say in the UK, born in other circumstances. I think that's something that really I was confronted with, and it caused a lot of discomfort. I suppose when I ended up coming back to the UK, I had a bit of an existential crisis because I was just unable to then enjoy the things that I used to enjoy. So for about 3 months, I just had this kind of process of trying to understand how on earth I can find meaning in my life anymore after just being confronted with just the disparity and confronting these truths. With the kids are just as intelligent and just as funny and playful and got as much vitality as any kids in the UK, and there's no particular reason why they should, I guess, be born into more difficult circumstances. That's been the takeaway for me, and it's like been really kind of inspiring seeing you do that. So I kind of wanted to get you on here just to kind of, I guess, talk at length about it and give you a space to talk about anything you want as well, really.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, it's that kind of feeling. It's a good summary of it because, that's the kind of feeling I had, I guess, back in high school. So that's one of the driving things for me is like you sort of see that world. Like back in England, you see a lot of poverty on TV. You see a lot of charities sort of saying, "Oh, look how terrible life is here. Your £2 a month can save this person's life," and it's in such a negative way. It puts the person down. Or I think it was Oxfam saying like, "This mother can't take care of a child, but your £2 your £2 a month can," and it just really puts people down in that way. When you actually get out here, when you actually, like you say, when you're looking and working with the kids, they're so fun, they're so cheeky, they're just like any kids in any situation. And it's the same with anything. Like when I'm learning Tagalog, when I'm learning Filipino, what are the first words I learn? Obviously the swear words. That's the first thing they're going to teach you as a white volunteer going over there and so on.
Yeah.
So it's essentially it gets to the point where it's like these are kids who deserve a chance, deserve an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so from the football, we built in the youth center, the drop-in center. We expanded over time, and so basically it's this holistic mentoring program. Sports by itself doesn't do much. I mean, it's a fun space, but what it does do is build that trust and build that relationship between you as a coach, them as kids.
Yeah.
And it's that relationship through the youth center, through everything else that we do. That's the relationship that's going to really help them build up towards what their goals are and help them achieve their goals.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you say the football. I guess it on its own doesn't help. I guess structurally or someone purely changing their lives around. But I remember speaking to the kids and them often saying that it was really good for them, really good for their kind of physical health, but also like mental health. Just kind of not having responsibilities, not having to worry about anything, and just running around kicking the ball about.
Yeah, for sure. Recently, one of our sports manager, so she was in our first batch of the kids that we sponsored in school.
Right.
She graduated from one of the top universities here with honors. She came back. She's now the sports manager, so managing the sports program on our management team, helping to make all the decisions. She spoke recently about that to a Rotary club and just saying how for her, being part of the football was her space to be a child. It was her childhood. It was where she could be a kid again.
Yeah.
She's not scavenging in the junk shop. She's not sorting through trash. She's not climbing up the garbage trucks. It's not the responsibility, all the chores at home. You've got 10 siblings.
Yeah.
You've got a tiny little shack for a home.
Yeah.
There's just no space there. There's no real life there to some degree. And so, getting out of there and being able to run off the stress, run off the energy, run off those bad things, but be able to find something constructive.
Yeah.
One of the reasons, I guess, is I say that it's football itself isn't the only thing that can do this. Football, it doesn't matter whether you're kicking the ball, throwing the ball in a hoop, hitting it. I don't know, what would you say with volleyball? Hitting it with your wrist, smacking it with a cricket bat or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. Art, stance, all these things just give you a physical outlet for this emotional and mental stress.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, with the coach, you build this relationship where you know someone is on your side. You know someone cares for you beyond the court, beyond the football field, beyond whatever venue it is. Yeah. And you've got someone who's on your side, and that's what can transform it.
Yeah, that's really lovely to hear you talk so passionately about it. You mentioned about like scavenging and jumping on the garbage trucks. I guess a lot of people who listen might not know the context for that. Can you kind of explain what the kids might be doing during the day and so on?
Yeah. So I guess obviously without giving names or anything, one of the stories that really hit hardest in some sense was there's a group of boys who basically the eldest became the man of the home at 7 years old. His mother died of a heart attack at 19 years old when he was 7. So if you do the maths, she was 12 when she gave birth. But 13 when she gave birth. 12 when she was pregnant. Had 2 more boys, dies of a heart attack at 19. It's like, who dies of a heart attack at 19, right? And then
due to the stress?
The father was stabbed to death in some city. Yeah, a whole mix of different things.
Right.
A whole mix of different things, a whole mix of problems. And so...
carry on.
The father was killed in some drunken, stupid argument a year before or after that. And so you've got 3 boys looked after by their grandparents in one of the largest and poorest communities in the Philippines, in a tiny little shack amongst all these other tiny little shacks. So obviously they have to work to be able to buy food, to buy the daily needs and so on.
Yeah.
The grandparents are old and they're scavenging in the junk shops as well. They'll earn about, in pounds, maybe £2 a day for the whole family. So it's just not enough. So the boys have to start climbing up the garbage trucks as they're coming through.
Yeah.
Fill rice sacks with garbage. They'll pick out, usually it's plastic, metal, and paper.
Yeah.
Sell it by the kilo to the junk shops, and that's what they'll earn for the day.
Yeah.
And that's how you're going to eat for the day.
Yeah. Is there I never actually knew this because obviously I met some kids that were going to school. Like, is there an offering of school, or is it like, I guess needs must? Like, if you need to work in order to survive, it doesn't really matter how old you are. They need to be doing the scavenging in order for the family to live. Is that basically it?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, you're going to see it in pretty much every poor community somewhere, but a lot of the kids going to school also work. So if you imagine you're doing a shift at 10 or 11 p.m. at night until, let's say, 4 or 5 a.m., you have a few hours sleep, you go to school, you're not going to do so well in the classroom, right? So usually what ends up happening is a lot of people look at, like I mentioned our sports manager earlier, and 10 siblings, so there's 11 kids in the family.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, oh, of course they're poor. They've got 11 kids. You can't feed and sustain 11 kids. All your money's tied up in that.
Yeah.
It's the other way around. The families aren't poor because they have so many kids. They have so many kids because they're poor. It was the same in England if you go back centuries, where a lot of the kids either might not survive into adulthood, or you needed kids to work now in order to get the daily needs of the family.
Yeah.
So if you look at how much school costs, school's supposed to be free. There's no tuition fees for elementary, for high school, for primary and secondary. But uniforms, transport, food, school lunches, all the miscellaneous fees.
So
the first week of school in the Philippines is often, you have to bring in some wax and wax all the floors. So the kids are the janitors for the first few days. It's a whole mess of things.
Yeah.
And so it's really expensive. If you look at it financially, if you're on the poverty line and you've got 3 kids, it's half your entire household income. Yeah. So imagine, I don't know what minimum wage is in the UK now, but let's say £20,000.
Yeah.
Say £10,000 to keep 3 kids in school. You can't afford it.
No.
You can't survive on a family of 5 with what's left.
Yeah.
So 1 or 2 kids will be the hope of the family. They'll be the kids you invest in. They'll be the kids that you send to school, and then the hope for the future.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the kids needed now to support those needs, to support the daily needs and the kids' education.
So it's not Sorry, Joe. Sorry, Roy. So it's not the fees themselves that do it. It's all the miscellaneous stuff around, like uniforms and stuff like that. And you were saying a lot of families, what they do is almost invest in a couple of kids to go to school, so they end up with a kind of income that can support the family in the future. And then the other kids need to go and scavenge to earn money right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's a familiar story everywhere, and it's why the only real hard way that you've ever seen the number of kids drop in a family is through the income, particularly of the mother, but the income of the family. Yeah. As the income goes up, the number of kids in the family will fall. And it's pretty much the only driver for that.
Yeah. I mean, when I was saying earlier, I was half joking about saying that going to the Philippines ruined my life.
Yeah.
I think for a few months it did bring on a serious existential crisis. Like, I guess just spending my time, I don't know, watching telly or playing games or whatever. Like that alone just didn't cut it anymore. Because I guess I realised that like my situation in the world wasn't neutral. I think it was like the first serious confrontation with like incredible privilege that I had. Whereas beforehand it just felt, oh, this is normal, this is life, this is neutral. And I think there's something especially about seeing the kids and getting to know the kids on individual first name basis and playing with them and so on, which is kind of what brought that about. I think, to be honest, it was partly what led for me to train as a therapist in a lot of ways. At least I'm confronting. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the UK in many ways, and I guess I needed something like that. I needed to kind of lean into difficult stuff or the darkness or whatever you want to call it in order to, feel like I'm contributing and feel comfortable in my own skin, really, because it was no longer kind of acceptable to not do that, at least in some way. I mean, I don't know how you would, and I know it depends on how you want to talk about this and if you want to talk about it, but like, had you ever thought about coming back to the UK, and would that be too difficult? Or I don't know, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I mean, for since I was about 18, I was bouncing between countries essentially, because for before college, I had the gap year, so that's where I went to Kenya, that's where I went to the Philippines for about 3 months each. I was a carer back in the UK to earn some money to do this, and then college. So I was there for the first year, and then in second year I went to Singapore, on student study exchange. And then the summers worked out so I could go back to the Philippines again. So that was one of the reasons I did that. And then I was back to England. So it was really bouncing around, because that feeling that you're talking about is, you come back to England and it's like people arguing about traffic lights, people arguing about all these mundane administrative public things. It just didn't make sense anymore. It's like, why do we care about all this? People are literally dying. People are literally we're arguing about 10-year-olds doing this when here in Payatas, 10 years have to climb up trucks and risk falling off and literally getting killed by the traffic that the scavenging in and so on. So it's just this whole other world. It feels like another world. And so there's so many different ways that you can approach that. Like you say, for you back in England, is there a way that you can find something meaningful and deal with something that there's obviously pain and there's obviously hurt and there's obviously difficulties in England as well. I'll say that the Philippines is a whole other level for most people.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of good you can do, obviously, in England. So is that one way? For me, I had no responsibilities. I didn't have a family to take care of. I didn't have kids, and so on. So I could essentially bugger off to the other side of the world and see what I can do, and I'll start joining in and so on. I mean, in hindsight, I wish I'd done it differently. But
really, in what way?
I didn't have any accountability.
What do you? Well, if you want to talk about it, what do you mean you wish you'd done it differently?
Yeah. Well, for example, I mean, I said earlier, right, on the day instead of going to graduation, I just buggered off to the Philippines and didn't really give anyone a choice in the matter. Like in hindsight, I wish that I'd gone and my parents could see that, and it's really more for them to be able to look at, hey, like they've raised me for however long, and it's only really when you get older that you appreciate a lot of the stuff that your parents had to go through in supporting you and raising you. In my first few years here, for example, they financially supported me as well a little bit. So there's my parents, they did the best they could with what they had as well. And I was a difficult child growing up. I'm sure you remember some of the things that we got up to at uni. I was a difficult adult as well, right? So it was I was a difficult kid to deal with. So it's more like instead of almost just running away and cutting ties and everything to a large extent, I wish I'd done it in a much more constructive or to a degree a gradual way where I could explain to people what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and so on. So it wasn't so much of a shock perhaps, but also that they get more out of that in terms of like the graduation and like other things where they get to share in that. So there's definitely ways I do it differently now.
I get that. I guess I look back on my time in the Philippines, and I kind of see it as a confrontation almost. Like like you said, like looking at like kids on Oxfam adverts, but then straight afterwards there's a trailer for a new film, or there's a Burger King advert or something, and there's something. I think even as much as you try and empathise and care about this advert and these kids on the telly, it's kind of undermined by the things that are around it, and the whole kind of juxtaposition kind of just destroys any kind of real sense of meaning of it. And I think being out there and really confronting the poverty and how unfair it all is, but I think it was mostly the humanity and the playfulness and the loveliness of a lot of the kids, and just spending time with them and teaching them English and things like that. That's kind of what did it. It's the humanity of the kids rather than anything else that really, some wall came tumbling down in my head, I suppose, and it kind of changed me since then. I suppose to other people about it who've gone through the same thing, that had reverse culture shock, I think is what it's often known as, kind of coming back to the UK after kind of seeing and experiencing certain things, and it just not sitting the same way anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Reverse culture shock. It was the first time I came out and went back. It was almost like a daze for the first sort of month or two, because you're just looking around like, none of this makes sense. No one else seems to understand like the urgency or the difficulties or just how easy everything is by comparison. It's it takes a while to get used to sort of to find your way through that. It absolutely takes time. And finding people who understand that and also have experienced it is crucial, like anything.
I think my way of coping was, I guess using my awareness of the privilege I have as a motivator. Really, it's like I'm in the red, almost like I'm in debt. Like I want to feel almost like neutralize the privileges that I have. I mean, I suppose I could give all my money away and give my house away and donate it to a charity.
I know a very good charity. That you could donate all of that to. By the way. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Send me your bank details. We'll sort that one out.
Well, I think at first that was just like, that's the only way I can live with myself. How the hell can I have a house, or how can I ever have any kind? I still struggle with that now, and I think I'm naturally a bit tight anyway. But I think that feeds into it. Like, how can I buy the fancy crisps? How can I? I'm spending little indulgences like that. Like, how dare I? Why don't I buy the cheap crisps and donate the difference to charity. And that was really hard at first, trying to kind of make sense of all that. And I guess I found some balance now. But yeah, that's really, really quite a difficult thing to kind of get my head around, you know. Yeah, wanting to feel like I'm contributing and owning the privileges that I have and living in line with that, whilst it being sustainable, I suppose. Because if I give everything away, then I can't. In the long run, I'd probably be able to do more if I look after myself on a basic level as well. And there's some balance.
Exactly.
Some balance there.
Yeah, the analogy that's usually used there is like it's the same with any carer. Any kind of therapy, any kind of caring, any kind of sense where you're dealing with someone like as a social worker or in that kind of world, you've got to take care of yourself before you can take care of anyone else. You've got to fill your own cup before you can overflow and pour into someone else's cup. So there's definitely a sense of guilt when you come to a place like the Philippines or Kenya or like some of the other places that I volunteered at before. There's definitely a sense of guilt when you go back that this is the world we live in, and for those that we know back in England and that we either spent time at college with or other friends, it's a completely different world. But at the same time, you know, you don't want to put that down in any way because that's the kind of world that you want for everyone. So you want to be able to make sure that we are doing the best we can where we are, and able then with when we start to overflow, when we start to be in that capacity sustainably, as you say, to give, then we can start to give back elsewhere for sure.
How do you find that balance? I don't know, the things you do to kind of chill out, or I don't know, how do you know when you're reaching the line that you need to kind of, I guess, look after yourself?
It's a fair question because for a long time, especially when you found an organization, you don't really take care of yourself.
No.
It's the same for a lot of founders. It's the same for a lot of people who get into this kind of stuff. Really, they get passionate. They start an organization, and they really don't take care of themselves. So after however many years, you really get into that burnout situation where you're burnt out by giving so much, everything relying on you, everything depending on you, and often the urgency of everything. There's always some sort of emergency. There's always some sort of massive problem. It could be a real heavy social work issue that you're dealing with. It could be, suddenly there's a typhoon. It could be a domestic case abuse. It could be so many different things that come up. Something always happens. And being able to step away for a while, it takes experience. It takes time. It takes practice to get used to stepping away without feeling that guilt of, I'm not there right now and someone's kind of hurting that I could have helped. So it takes practice, I think is the word, to be able to take care of yourself and make sure you're recharging your battery so you can
absolutely
help charge others later on.
I really relate to that. Ironically, my job now, I don't feel like I'm at risk of that, but any job, like my previous job where I was kind of like, I was a teacher, counselling teacher, but I was kind of like a manager. I had managerial responsibility, and students were always on placement and stuff like that, and I could get emails at any time, and I wasn't always logged into my emails, but it was very hard to turn off with that kind of hovering above type responsibility. And ironically, I'm a crisis worker now, working with people in acute crisis alongside private practice, but I don't have that hovering above responsibility anymore. So it's a residential house, and I go do my job, and I trust my colleagues to take over after I've left, and it does the world a good for me. Actually, it's really good for that, and I can imagine that hovering above, especially when you founded the entire thing yourself. I can imagine that being hard to draw a line, but I suppose like you say, you need to at some point. The analogy,
for sure,
the metaphor I've often heard is like gas masks on a plane. You need to kind of put your own gas mask on before you can kind of look after anyone else's, because if you don't do that, then you kind of, you're screwed. You can't look after anyone else anyway. Just conscious that we talked about fair play for all, and how you came out to Piatas, and I guess the impact it's had on you, and the impact it's had on me as well. Like, what does fair play look like now? I suppose I've not been out there in about 10 years now, so I guess I'd be curious to hear about what you're up to nowadays, and the projects and so on that you're doing.
So when we first started Fair Play, it was like I was a kid, I was a child. It was 18 years old volunteering, and then 21, 22 when I graduated. So when we set up the project and so on, like coaching 80 kids on a basketball court, I'd never coached before,
Yeah.
so it was everything was amateur, right? And then Naomi came in over the next few months, and we started a drop-in center, this tiny little shack up the top of the road,
Yeah.
and we lived in there. And people thought we were crazy, and we probably were. So we had like the drop-in center up there. I remember the first week we were there. We came back from dinner, and someone had sawn the door in half. So the wooden door,
Yeah.
our front door, had just been sawn in half. They climbed in, stole a rice cooker and a stove, and then ran away. So it wasn't too bad.
Right.
And then 6 months later, we think it was the same people. They smashed through a window, which was past the gate.
Yeah.
Smashed through a window, and at that time they took my laptop, which was on the table,
Oh shit.
because I was doing for my master's level.
Yeah.
They took my laptop, which had all the research on it, put it in the nearest bag, which just happened to have my passport because I was doing my student visa at the time. At that point, we had hired a local mother. We were now based in the community for like over half a year, and we'd been doing the football for over a year by this point.
Local mother.
So people started to take care of it. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, we'd hired someone locally to help with the kitchen side of things.
Okay.
So she was doing some cooking and some with the kids.
Yeah,
the food for the kids.
I thought that might be it. I just wanted to check.
Yeah. So she asked, across the road is La Mesa Dam, which is the drinking water supply for the city.
Yeah.
Putting the drinking water next to the biggest dump site in the country might not sound like a great idea, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
Genius city planning. So they asked the security guard across the road, like if they saw anything. I said, there was this guy with longer hair, and then something as innocuous as that, something as generic. I said, it's probably this guy. So it turned out it was that guy. And in 24 hours, I had my passport back. In 48 hours, my laptop had been sold on to a local mall, so it had been wiped. I lost all the documents, but I got the hardware back, and that's a big win. In 48 hours.
Yeah.
So this is a long way of saying that being based in the community, you earn your stripes.
Yeah.
People here are used to people coming in, politicians, white people, richer groups. They'll come in, promise the world, we'll be back, and they never are. They don't come back, and so there's no trust, and it takes a long time to rebuild that trust. One of the things that really struck me was volunteering at the children's home, the one that you volunteered at as well. I remember that one of the kids said, every volunteer says they'll come back, and the charity's been going 30, 40 years, that one. And you're the first one that did.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, there's a responsibility there. There's a real care that you have to give to what you say, what you promise, and what you do.
I was conscious.
So over time, we've grown up with the foundation. We've grown up alongside the kids. We've made plenty of mistakes along the way. As a leader, as a manager, I've grown obviously so much more. And looking back now, 14 years, we're in a really, really good place where our team really gets what we're trying to do. They're passionate about what we're doing. They've bought into what we're doing. Some of the kids that we had in the beginning are now graduating and coming back and paying that forward.
Great.
So they're managing, they're coaching, they're tutoring. So the kids we tutor become the next tutor. The kids we coach become the next coach. The kids we mentor become the next mentor. And that's what you want at the end of the day. So we have our own sports center. There's 2 courts there. So there's about, any year, there's about 10 different youth coaches from our community working there. We have our cafe, which provides the school lunches for the kids, which provides some of the meals for the staff, and we sell within the community as well. It also helps, like being vegan in the Philippines, if you make your own vegan cafe, your own vegan carinderia, it's called the canteen. That's always helpful. And then we have the youth center, which is where we do really the social work, the emotional development, and everything on that side of it. So you need everything together to what we call level the playing field. If you have one area you can have the best academic program in the world, but the kids who are struggling emotionally, socially, the ones who have that real social work needs, they're not going to get the best out of that. You can have it the opposite way around, and the social work's there, but then the quality for the academics or the financial incentives that the kids need. We talked about how the kids need to work. So coaching instead of scavenging, or tutoring instead of scavenging. We need to provide these pathways, or they financially can't continue. They just have to drop out and work now. So everything has to work together. And now our team is in a position where they really understand what we're doing more. They understand that ultimately we're trying to heal from this community, this childhood trauma issue that the community has, and on a much grander level.
Yeah.
And work to provide these opportunities for the kids so that they can achieve what they want to achieve.
But
they can,
there's almost like a bunch of different pillars though. Like I guess if you focus on one of them,
yeah,
then the others have been neglected, and the kid might not be able to kind of achieve what they otherwise would. But you've got different pillars supporting different areas. Yeah, like you say, more holistic. I felt a bit emotional here in that level the playing field. I remember that being the tagline: level in the playing field on and off the pitch. That's right, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
But Piatas,
It's really got to the point
sorry.
where it is now, and it's that point where the proof is there with the kids from that first batch are back and coaching, tutoring, and so on.
Yeah.
They're not just getting their own varsity scholarships in football or futsal. They're getting their own opportunities there, with honors at university and so on, and that's great.
Yeah.
But they're also creating the next one.
Yeah.
They're also creating the next batch of kids that way, and that's the cycle.
But,
I mean, you talk about the difficulties you feel and that responsibility you feel personally.
yeah.
It's you really start to share that out when you start to learn to share that. That was one of my problems in the beginning, is trying to do everything yourself.
Right.
There's that old African proverb apparently, which says something like, "If you want to go fast, go alone." And that's what I was doing in the beginning. It was like, so many ideas. This will be great. This will be great. And this will be great. No one's with you. So if you want to go fast, go alone.
Yeah.
If you want to go far, go together.
That's nice.
And being able to build up the team and so on, it really helps to. I've learned that the hard way. In the last decade.
You've like hit a wall and then
when you
yeah,
exactly. When you slow down and you start to get everyone on board and start to get it together, it's like, oh, I understand why Roy wants this now. I understand why this is the plan. I understand why that's the vision and so on. I understand now why this was the rule that we had.
Yeah.
And it stops being Roy's rules. It stops being because Roy said so. And it starts becoming they take ownership of the projects themselves.
Yeah.
And no, we're doing this because it's the right way to do it, and we know that it works, and so on. And they develop it and improve on it.
That sounds really lovely.
And that's what I love to see.
Yeah, it sounds really nice. And Piatas FC are doing pretty well as well. I remember I got a few memories of Piatas going into tournaments and holding their own against kids that are, I guess, a lot more privileged from much better off areas of the country.
Yeah, football is back when you were here, football was very much a sort of rich kid sport because they're the only ones who could train on the field. They're the only ones who could afford the football boots and so on. Whereas we've got a community team where the kids are mostly playing barefoot, and so at that time anyway. And so when we joined a tournament back then, the kids would be literally half the size of the other kids. You play basketball, there's no way that you can compete and so on. But the kids did really, really well. They've won a lot of trophies now. We've got 3 kids who've represented the national team now.
That's amazing.
So far, 2 of them have scored for the national team. So that's quite nice. A lot of kids on varsity scholarship. I think we have 13 on varsity senior high school and college scholarships now. So they're doing really, really well.
That's amazing.
So yeah, our women's team are in the top women's futsal league in the Philippines. Our 12-year-old scored last week, actually, which is really cool. So she's now the youngest player to ever score in the top women's futsal league, which is really fun.
Yeah, that's amazing.
She beat out another one of our kids who's 13 when she scored in that competition. So we got a lot of kids coming through as well. Not just like the alumni and those that are in higher ones, but
I mean, it's such a different.
The coaches are creating more.
I mean, like I say, it's such a different narrative to those adverts that you see and stuff. These kids like actually given the right support, they can achieve incredible things.
Yeah,
it's really
exactly. You want to take. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I was just saying, it's really amazing. Just really, really inspirational. What. Given the right support and the right kind of foundations really of help, where they can go with it. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like that's what you want everyone to have. That's what you want. Everyone deserves that fair shot. Everyone deserves that fair chance.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things always is that not everyone's going to take it. There are kids who we have that could have been on the national team but didn't push themselves or dropped out for whatever reason. Or kids who had the opportunity to go to college and do really well, but they emotionally they'd really struggled or didn't push them, didn't
Yeah.
understand why,
Yeah.
and they look back now and say, oh, I wish I'd done that. I
Yeah.
wish I'd attended the tutorials, attended the
Yeah.
EQ, and so on. So that's a difficulty with that one.
All you can do
But
is
yeah,
offer the
it's
opportunity, isn't it? Like you as the
exactly,
person organising stuff, all you can do is
yeah,
offer the chance.
exactly. And as you say, like when you give that opportunity, most of them really take hold of that and they fly with it, and they take ownership when they have that ownership. So what I don't like about that old school charity marketing stuff was it always put us as donors, as in England,
Yeah.
generally
Yeah. Yeah.
speaking,
Yeah.
those wealthier donors, we were the hero of the story. We were the ones who were driving everything. It was our money that made the difference, and so on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, financially donating helps, and it's crucial. You can't do anything without money, generally speaking, right?
Yeah.
You need a budget to do anything. And that's absolutely helpful. But your job isn't to be the hero. Your job isn't to be the main
Yeah.
character.
Get out of the
Your
way.
job is to be the supporting person on the side.
Yeah.
Yours is to be the cheerleader. And it's the kids themselves, it's the families here. They're the heroes of the story. They're the ones who deserve that narrative. They're the ones who deserve their own story for when they put that effort in, when they get the better opportunities, they work hard towards it.
Yeah.
They can achieve so much with that. And crucially, they can then offer those opportunities to the next batch and the
Yeah.
next batch.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And I guess your job is to try and facilitate that and offer those opportunities. So yeah, I feel like we're coming probably to a natural end. Yeah, I guess I just want to say thank you so much, Roy, for sharing this. Is there anything else you want to say before we finish?
Yeah, it's been great chatting about that. It's an extreme level of difference, like the Philippines versus England and so on. But it's the same struggles. Ultimately, it's the same struggles and challenges that everyone, to some extent, goes through. And it's just for some people, it's much harder. And so, yeah, it's just learning to be able to fill your own cup, take your time out, so that you can help others
Yeah.
with that, and that how we help is going to look very, very different. Not everyone can run off to the Philippines and jump into the middle of a slum and live in a tiny shack for however many years.
Yeah.
It's obviously better now. But, if everyone did that, it'd be an absolute mess. You'd have a bunch of unqualified white people running around causing havoc. It's not how you want to do things.
Yeah.
I've learned along the way, things are much more professional, and we're at the level of we apply for international grants with things like the FIFA Foundation or Australian Aid and so on. So everything's in a really professional level now.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's not when you start. It's not when you begin and so on. You don't want a bunch of people randomly going out and helping.
You very much learned
you
by
want
experience.
to empower the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want people here to be able to get that opportunity
Yeah.
to develop. So yeah, it's been a pleasure talking, and yeah, I look forward to next time.
And I'll also include links to the charity and anything else relevant that you want me to beneath the video on Spotify.
That was it.
Yeah.
I was supposed to plug all of that.